What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here, ready to chop it up with my guy, Bill Schmid from 97.3 The Game. It's Carry the G Radio as a podcast. We're not on the radio. We're not live. Not that we don't love you and want all your comments and input. We'll get to that eventually. We'll be doing some of these live down the road. But right now, we just wanted to keep talking. I like talking to Bill. Bill, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm recovering from the combine.
I'll bet.
Baptism, I think is
Yes,
the best way
sir.
to put it. It was a baptism into what the NFL combine is in Indianapolis. And I can't thank you enough for being the tour guide. So it was great. I'm doing good.
We want to talk Packers. We want to talk NFL, and we'll dive into a little personal stuff from time to time. And I think at the end of this session here, we'll get to the combine. We'll get to your first combine because I mean you kind of threw down. You did not. You were not timid. You were not tepid.
No.
You joined in right away, which I love. I appreciate it.
Listen, the only way to figure out if you can swim is dive right on in and
Right into
figure
the
out
deep end.
you got to go into the deep end and see if you can play. We're not messing around in the shallow end. And there was a lot going on. It was intense there for a few minutes,
Yes, sir.
but man, it was as a dude that just loves football. I love the
Yes.
NFL in a
Yes.
sick, weird, twisted way.
Yes, sir.
It's everything, everybody talking about the National Football League. That's what it is. It's NFL
Mm-hmm.
nonstop for now a full week. Like
Yes,
when
sir.
you started going there, I don't know that it was a full week, but they've drug it out into a full national event that really kicks off the entire NFL season. Because here we go. Free
I love
agency
it.
starts next week and it's in.
Next week, and of course, the headliner on Green Bay, thanks to Tom Silverstein for really kicking the hornet's nest the other day as far as Aaron Jones and what the Packers are going to do there, seemingly in negotiation with Drew Rosenhaus to try and lower his cap number. I have been of the thought, opinion, etc., that there's no way he walks out the door. There's no way Gutekunst doesn't get this done. However, the one, and I mean one thing that could maybe upset the apple cart here is Drew Rosenhaus. The presence of Drew Rosenhaus. He hasn't been as adversarial, I feel, lately as he was, say, a couple, 5 years ago. It used to be you heard that he was representing someone and, get ready for a battle. But it feels like that is kind of dissipated. But
Yeah.
he's still Drew Rosenhaus.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Man.
And here's the part of it. He already took a pay cut last year.
Yes, sir.
So that's where
Well, and
for Drew Rosenhaus, that doesn't look good. And we don't want to keep that going. We don't
No,
want to make that a precedent for the rest of my clients to think
and
that
here's the
happens.
thing, right? Like they apparently like the idea is not to take a pay cut, but to reduce the cap number. Now,
Mhm.
there's lots of gymnastics you got to do there. Perhaps opening the door for a possible extension to lower his cap hit initially,
Which I'm okay with.
or maybe they do something to the contract where he has some incentive-based stuff. There's a couple possibilities here, but I think it still all boils down to there's no way in my mind that Gutekunst doesn't get this done, doesn't make it priority number one, which I think it is.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine Aaron Jones not on the Packers next season.
I just don't understand how, Nags, you can have the new starting quarterback of your team who you're about to make the face of your franchise for at least the next 3 to 4 years into
Yes,
a fat
sir.
contract extension.
Right.
Go on a podcast with another NFL player who you just whoop that candy ass
Good
on
point.
national television in the
Good
playoffs.
point.
To say he's the heart and soul of your team and fret over, as bad as this. Hey man, it's a couple $1,000,000 amongst friends. What are we doing here? Like, I mean, if we're talking
Right.
about a 7.4 cap number or an 8.3 cap number,
Yeah.
there becomes a time where, as the front office, say, okay, this is the deal that we got to get into. Now it's our job to make everything around us better to still fit into what our plan is to put the best football team on the field. And I haven't figured out a way, Nags, that their best football team in 2024 doesn't have Aaron Jones
Doesn't
a part
include.
of it.
Yes.
It focuses on him. Now, maybe there's additions to that room, and there have been plenty of people, yourself included, didn't throw the no out there about a couple of different free agent running backs. They've already looked at trying to add potentially earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be in the mix in that room, not only at the end of April, but potentially even as early as next week.
I don't disagree. Obviously alluding to the Saquon Barkley tweet that I put out earlier this afternoon with a maybe on my yes, no, maybe scale.
Maybe.
It's a maybe. And look, I doubt it happens. However, you're letting, or reportedly from Spoon's reporting, letting AJ hit the market, right?
Mhm.
No plans to re-sign him. you already tried to trade, or we're in conversations. You made a call about Jonathan Taylor last year,
Yep.
right? They were, according to Jay Glazer, calling around and interested in Barkley at the trade deadline last season. So clearly, Brian's got some ideas about, upping the floor, raising the floor in the running back room, right? Not averse to. I think it's a foregone conclusion that they draft a back or two, regardless of what they do
Yep.
in free agency.
Totally agree.
But I think that running back room is going to see an influx of talent. That's my guess here. I don't know if it's a major signing, but with the glut of running backs that are going to be hitting the market this offseason in a way that wasn't present last year, I think that works in the Packers' favor when it comes to Aaron Jones. Because, I mean, you got all these guys on the street. You really think if
Totally.
Aaron Jones makes it to the market, coming off a pretty injury-riddled season in 2023, that, the Packers are sitting here saying, you are not going to do better than what we're going to be offering you out in the open market.
No, and you're not going to be in a better situation, right? Like I think that's
Exactly.
the other
Yes.
part of it in an
Right.
offense that is going to just showcase your talents, do what you do well,
Right.
focusing on getting on outside with some athletic offensive linemen in front of you that I think they're also going to add to.
Yep.
Like I don't see right now a way that, like I said, their football team is better in 2024, and he necessarily is in a better position. I think they add two. And I think one could be in the free agent market. We were talking about it on the radio show today, that if you're looking at it like Drew Rosenhaus and company had to last year, remember Aaron Jones, when he takes that pay cut, did you hear about him in the running back summit? Was he
No.
on the long Zoom call about, running back contracts going down? No, because he was shot straight about what to expect
Right.
in the market this year and last year. And I think that's where, you mentioning Rosenhaus doesn't have maybe the killer edge or the killer sound to his name because he doesn't have T.O. doing push-ups in his front yard anymore. What he's got is
next question.
What he's got is a load of experience and understanding right now where the market's at,
And
and
relationships,
this
right?
might be the
With
best deal.
every front office. He
Yeah.
knows everyone in the league, and he, to your point, he absolutely knows the lay of the land. There's zero doubt about that, and has a great understanding. Funnily enough, Rosenhaus also in the news, somewhat Packers wise, coming to in regards to another client
Yeah.
in John Runyon Jr., who Matt Schneidman
Good for
putting
you,
out
John.
there that the Packers and John Runyon Jr., there's mutual interest in him sticking around, which I got to tell you, after his tearful session in the locker room on cleanout day, I thought pretty much had most likely been told that it's, bye, see ya, good luck testing the market. But here we go. Who knows? Maybe he does stick around. Now, I think it's a tricky situation financially because there's
Sure.
no way I want the Packers paying starter money to Runyon.
Mhm.
I think he could get a starter's contract on the open market. So
I agree.
I think there's only so much the Packers can, or so far the Packers can go here. I think it's a nice story. I'll still be surprised if he's back.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Negs. I'd kind of be stunned if John Runyon doesn't get a job pretty quickly in free
I
agency.
totally agree.
I don't expect him to be waiting until Wednesday when it actually is free
Right.
agency.
It'll
Monday at
happen during the
11 is
tampering
actual free
period.
agency, right?
Right.
It's going to happen quick because
I agree.
as much as I hate to say this, as much as I love offensive line play, it's not great amongst the league right now.
No,
And
sir.
even though the Packers were actively trying to give John Runyon Jr.'s job away throughout the season to Sean Ryan,
Please, someone take this fucking job.
I thought he played well with the competition, right? Like I thought he
Yeah.
played his best football the
It
back end of the
elevated
year.
his game, no doubt.
And the full unit did. So I don't know if that is more attributed to the rest of the group and Zach Tom, he was playing next to,
Yeah,
or if that can go up. But I agree with you. I think if he's back for competition for the right guard job, that's good.
yes.
He, though, I think is going to get paid because there's teams across the NFL that are looking for dudes up front that they can trust with their franchises.
Who have a ton of experience,
did it.
have started
Played a
how
bunch
many
of football.
games? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that doesn't just like materialize. Like those guys when they hit the market, they're going to get pounced on. And here's with the amount of free agency money, cap space that some of
Big
these
time.
teams have.
Yes.
We're talking 100 million, 80 million. They can craft a deal for John Runyon like pretty quick and significantly, where I don't think those are waters that the Packers want to swim in any way.
No, and I just just looking at the way they do it, Runyon's the same way. I see them bringing in more tackles that they think can play guard,
Yep.
or and this is a conversation that's probably a little bit different than it was week 9 or 10. Are you looking at maybe Josh Myers bumping on over, and you can bring somebody else in to play center
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
Jackson Powers finds his way on down to 25? We can have that
You
conversation.
like that, huh? I've gotten that a lot in my mentions. I'm still of the opinion that the Packers are in love with Josh Myers at
I
center,
agree.
and they don't
Yes,
want to move off of him. However, they're not going to trash a guy publicly. They've always kind of gone to bat for him, whether it's been Gutekunst or Steno or whoever. I don't think they're going to like throw him under the bus in a public situation ever. But I do genuinely think they like him there.
I agree.
Now who knows? The draft falls a certain way, and they do find, the value at the position. There's someone they think can walk in and start day one. Yeah, I don't think they'll hesitate. I think the competition is something we heard Goody mention again and again and again in
Hmm.
Indy. Yeah, they got to up the floor, so to speak, when it comes to those spots to trying to compete. And I don't think center is any different in that regard.
No, I don't think it should be. But I'm with you. I think they really like Josh. I think they really like the way that he developed towards the end of the year, and I think they want to try that continuity again with him and Jordan.
Yeah,
I also think there's something to this. Look, you start really taking inventory on the 22 draft, what they did offensive line wise. I
right.
mean, that could be if Sean Ryan takes over this job. And I
Mhm.
liked him the most out of all these offensive linemen that they took in that draft. Not surprising, right? I mean, like he was the highest
The third
drafted of
rounder.
them,
Yep. Yep.
third rounder. He looked like he was more of a guard with those big old legs and big old ankles that he had. I'm
Right.
interested to see him in some boxing matches next year. So I think he walks
Yeah.
in kind of as the incumbent still.
I do too. Like if they practice tomorrow, but they don't, and there's a long way to
True.
go,
Yep.
right? I
Yep.
just don't know. I mean, I think if he had been able to grab the job, I'd feel more confident saying that kind of thing. But man, they certainly, and here's the other thing, just as far as snap counts, right? Like some of it was 50-50, some of it was, still in Runyon's favor.
Totally.
I just didn't see them ever say, or kind of, with their actions say, "Oh yeah, we see Sean Ryan really improving, and we really want to give this to him." He just never grabbed it. I,
No,
I
they just
think
wanted him to.
they wanted him to, but he just
Yep.
never did.
Yep.
Um, One other thing I did want to touch on real quick before we move on, as far as the offensive line goes, it's fascinating to watch. Even after 1 year of not drafting an offensive lineman, right, which is something that Brian has done consistently throughout his tenure. You go to last season, didn't do it. Now all of a sudden you notice like little kind of not holes, but you see the need to okay, let's keep drafting offensive linemen
Yep.
because you just can never have enough. They're really good at doing it, and they seem to find players. Obviously, a lot's been talked about on day 3, but I don't think that idea of okay, we're so good or have been. We have a great track record on day 3. I see so many people kind of in my mentions for certain mock drafts or certain prospects talking
Hmm.
about, oh, we don't need to do that because they're so good on day 3. Let me tell you, I'll take a stud. I'll take
Right.
a dude at 25, set it and forget it. I got no problem. And I don't think the Packers do either. Just because you're good at this, like day 3 thing, that doesn't mean that you're taking these guys off your board. You know what I mean? Especially if
No
the
doubt about it.
value's there.
And especially when you're talking about for this organization, like you mentioned, one that loves drafting offensive linemen and is good at developing them.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised that they don't take the swing. I don't think Goody. I'm gonna hold myself before I say it because I don't want to say it the wrong
I
way
hear you. I hear
where
you.
like he would walk out of last year's draft because I think he was very happy with what they did. They had to
Mhm.
reshape the wide receiver room.
Yep.
Did it. Had to do the same thing in the tight end room.
Did
Did
it.
it.
Yep.
Right. Had some big issues that they had to address. Lost a bunch of snaps with Dean Lowry and Jaden Reed or
Yep.
Jaron Reed. Sorry.
Jaron Reed. Yep.
Had to replace that. They did
Yep.
with two guys on the interior. So I think for them to walk in and say offensive lineman is not something that we have to make sure we bring in,
Yeah.
but if he was sitting, with beers on the table, being as honest as possible, I think he'd probably say, "Yeah, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
we could have snuck one on in there instead of."
I was so surprised. I remember that third day of the draft when they came out of the 7th round without one. I was just like, not one?
Not one.
Really? Really?
Nope, not
This
one.
is so unlike them. That's what something they do. You did mention the tight end room, and I do want to kind of mention how going and looking at the Packers roster and who's set to be a free agent, and we're on the precipice, right? Next week, we're going to get our
Hmm.
first kind of blush at, all right, who are they really letting walk out the door here, and who's going to potentially get, swept up in free agency, etc. Man, the move tight end spot is a bit of a sneaky need. Like if you want to be doing all the stuff Matt likes to do, all of the Shanahan style stuff, you've got that position. And I know, look, they had Pearson in there for some of it across
Hmm.
the season. He's not the answer. They've tried to bring different guys in throughout the last couple of years. Clearly, Josiah DeGuara, not the answer.
Yeah.
Overdrafted, I think it's fair to say now. Certainly not what you need at that position. So to me, that's a wide open possibility, either in free agency or in the draft. I'm not going to be surprised if they target that position with some free agency dollars, even.
Well, in that position in and of itself, where you have to have a real understanding, a crazy understanding of the offense to be able to execute it at that
Everything
level,
you're asked to do, right?
it's probably not the worst thing to go to the free agency of it. And it makes it even more impressive as to how Musgrave and Kraft both developed last year, because that
Word.
position, you got to know everything in the run game and everything in the pass game.
Yeah.
And the only position really where you got to focus that intently on both sides, right? At wide receiver, I kind of know where I'm going on a block, right? Like I got
Right,
not that
right.
big of a deal.
I'll get this
Tight
guy
end,
blown out on the edge here.
man, tight end it is. And if you're going to be running across the formation, I think that's one where if you find a vet, I could see them going there. That being said, I also wonder if they think that they can finagle a way to have Musgrave and Kraft on the field at the same time if they try to
And they
force
have
feed one of
one
them
of
into that.
them do that. I've
Yep.
wondered about that. I don't know, man. Like it feels
Neither of them
like
seem like a very good fit for it.
no, and
Yeah.
a Kraft, I mean, 100% improved. I mean, one
Hmm.
of the most improved players I've ever watched, like through a season, right? Like you were out there at Radnitsky Field last summer. It was hard to watch at times.
Yep.
Even at first part of the season, it was hard to watch at times. But man, he did come on. He did improve, and he did some of that stuff, right? But I just think they want a very specific type of player, and that neither of those guys are.
Yeah.
But now it's funny because you say bring in a vet. They probably do bring in a vet, but it'll probably be like some waiver claim. Like it won't be like
In the middle of June.
free agency. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. It'll be
Yep.
someone on someone else's practice squad or something like that. That would be my guess. But I wouldn't be surprised if they looked there at some point in the draft.
No, because and this is also where they don't have a ton of money, but they have money to finally actually
Well,
play
that's
with a
they could
little bit where you got to smartly invest.
and they can make some moves still. We're still
Yep.
not, when we get down to brass tacks next week, that's when we'll know really what they're playing with, right? The Bakhtiari situation, the
Totally.
Campbell situation, like they could be suddenly not flush, but they could have some maneuverability in free
And the other
agency.
part of it is, do you want to add more vets to the defense, which is already littered with first round picks? But I
Right.
don't know that you want to go there with, right now I think they take 3 of the 5 first 3-round picks probably on the
On
defensive
defensive
side,
side, right.
loaded up again. But your offense is already so young. Maybe that's where you'd have more of an impact with a vet like that. That's the
That's a good point.
and depending on what conversations they find themselves in, maybe that's part of the arithmetic to it is where we're at here. We want to get a little bit more seasoned on this side. I don't know if that
Right.
part of it plays in or if it's just strictly traits and how we think they fit
How they
into
fit
either
in the
Halfley or
scheme,
LaFleur's
right.
scheme.
I keep thinking it's interesting because going back to Brian's big year in free agency, right? When he signed Amos and
The
Turner
Smiths.
and the Smiths all within a 48-hour period, essentially. I
Hmm.
mean, Billy Turner was literally the first call they made the second, the legal tampering period opened up, and they signed all four of those
That was
guys like
awesome.
right away, right? I don't expect that, but I do think there is probably something to be said for he'll probably be a little more, I don't know, quick, whatever, early in free agency this year than he has the last few years as an attempt to kind of reset things on the defensive side of the ball. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because that's what essentially he was doing with those three signings that year.
Yep.
As far as, okay, we've seen the talent kind of deteriorate. We've got to kind of get an influx of talent, especially if for no other reason. I mean, obviously you want these players to come in, play well, you add things and be part of the scheme and all that, but you don't want yourself boxed in the draft when you're trying to draft,
Right.
trying to develop long-term thinking. You don't want to reach at a need spot. You want to be able to be kind of malleable to where the value is. You want to be able to say, I don't have to take that position. I signed this guy in free agency. He's going to be fine. I can live with him. He's going to make us better, blah, blah, blah. But hey, if the value is there, yeah, okay, I'll double up on that position. We've seen him do that, but it helps you kind of stay open in the draft rather than, okay, I've kind of boxed myself in here and I have to get one of these guys.
How much do people hate hearing best player available?
Oh, so much.
It allows
it's always best player available at a position of need. I mean, that's what the
right.
draft is.
It is. But however, at position of need or position of value. And they value premier positions early, and that's pass rusher, that's corner, quarter, and right now it's tackle and wide receiver, right? However, wide receiver is becoming one in which these players are so good at running routes because they're actually running them in the offseason, unlike they were able to do 15 years ago because nobody decided, hey, we should we should do open gyms for football.
I know. What a concept.
Son of a bitch. That's a good idea. Damn. Brilliant. Why did I think of that? Brilliant. And now all these guys are coming in, not fully polished route runners, but they're understanding how to get open with multiple quarterbacks. They've been doing it. So they have focused on the premier positions. And I think that's where you could see if you go and add something in the back end, or if you do add something. I've seen people say on the quarterback side, Jacksonville just cut a couple of different DBs. Depending on where they go there, it frees you up to go and draft another pass rusher.
Yes.
And that's a spot where I want young guys who are fast and have a want to and have to know. Deion Sanders always says this. I want somebody as a pass rusher that's been chasing somebody or been being chased, right? Because I want you to have a little bit of different hunger in your stomach to go and make some plays.
Oh, I mean, spot on. And the idea of, freeing yourself up as far as the value wherever it is at a premier position, that's what you want, especially early in the draft. Get these guys on their kind of, rookie deal where you're also getting cheap labor at a premium position.
Yeah.
That's big time. No doubt about it. Speaking of big time, let's widen our scope here a little bit and let's talk about the NFL in general and some of these kind of headlines that have been coming out. Because I got to say, I can't stop laughing at the Russell Wilson Broncos situation. I mean, this shit is hilarious. The fact that, he's getting paid, $36 million to not play for the Broncos. The fact that they're taking an $86 million cap hit for him not to play for them. I mean, what did he say to Sean Payton? What did Sean Payton find when he talked to Russell Wilson? I mean, because Russell didn't have he played well down the stretch last year. Was it great quarterbacking? Was he an all-star MVP? No, but he played well. And the fact that they're willing to eat all this and just kick him to the curb is just hilarious to me.
Think of the teams that he beat before, if the alleged timeline is right.
Right.
Where
after he was told. Right.
After he beats the Chiefs, beats the Packers, and then goes in and beats Buffalo that next week. Those were 3 of the 8 final teams standing. And he played well enough in all those games. And I kind of know how from a certain level he played, because I have him in a really important dynasty fantasy league. So I was quite invested in Russell Wilson figuring the shit out. And Nags, I messed up so brutally because I got a little too liquored up at one point, made a bad trade, and I traded for Russell Wilson, all right? So I was frustrated as all hell. I had to figure out a way for this to not be the worst move of my fantasy career. And he was somewhat resurgent, right? He
played things well together down the stretch. That's my point.
He was pretty much on time with everything.
Yep.
And to go through, if all of this is true, what they told him, have somebody tell you that you got to cut out your injury guarantee or you're going to get benched. What? I don't care what field of work you're in. That's bull. And that's difficult to come in with the same kind of attitude all year long and still get better. So I think he endeared himself more to the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Totally
through the last 4 months than he has in the last 4 years.
Totally.
Except I think he's going to get a good chance.
I agree, but it is funny because all the Let's Ride shit is still out there. It's available on the internet. All I got to do is look at him going.
The Subway commercials are still there.
Let's Ride. Yeah. That's all still there. Probably pretty prevalent in people's imaginations. However, to your point, I think it makes it a lot easier for you to not only sign him in free agency if you're looking for a bridge quarterback, but it also probably is an easier sell to whatever fan base he ends up in. And I don't know where that is. Hell, that could be Minnesota. We could be dealing with them twice a year as Packers fans. But yeah, I think it's just funny to me how I tell people all the time, and they never want to really kind of buy into this, but it is 100% true. And Billy, I know you know this. It is a relationship business.
Yep.
And it is so clear that whatever relationship was going on between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson was not only like frayed, it was non-existent.
It was over. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was over. He was not going to walk in on another Monday morning and look at his face.
No chance.
And that is
no chance.
Yeah, and I like that you put it that way, because that's exactly what it is. You don't have to like everybody you work with, but you got to be able to deal with them. It's clear that was not going to happen anymore.
And they're talking. They're speaking volumes, letting him go and releasing him on the 11th and dealing with his cap hit and paying him the 36. And oh my God, it's just, again, it's hilarious.
I have my own viewpoints about Sean Payton. Now, John Kuhn loves Sean Payton. Played for him, right?
He played for him,
but swears by him too, right? Like, I mean, he's played for a bunch of coaches. Doesn't talk. Loves Sean Payton, right?
Right.
I never liked him.
No, neither do I.
Never liked him. He's got a crazy amount of leverage, though, when he walked on in, gets the highest paid salary in football.
Well, and what
says,
they gave up to get him, right?
What they gave up to give him. And also, this is my favorite part of the NFL. New ownership.
Oh, don't get me started.
People with a shit ton of money.
Yep.
Too much money to know what to do with. And they're amazing in other businesses, right?
Yep.
The Penner family, you can't tell me they're not great businessmen and women.
No, yeah, of course.
However, they're not great football men and businessmen and women.
Nope.
And Dave Tepper is learning the same lesson.
Yep.
I think Josh Harris is going to learn the same lesson as well. You're going to stumble a little bit before you learn the business of pro football. And look at Jed York in San Francisco. He learned a lot.
He's improved.
He learned a lot.
He's improved. No question about it. But that's the great point, because like the fact that this contract that they're dealing with and the fact that they're having to, kind of deal with all the repercussions, that was mandated by ownership, like the new one that they're going to have to like continue to pay out. The GM didn't want to do that. That was the ownership. So yeah, that's, again, Packers fans, reason 4,722, being fan owned is preferable.
It's amazing. It's one way that you can stay out of your team can't get in their own way.
Yep.
Right? Do they maybe not push you over the edge, which everybody will be, many people will be frustrated about?
That's
sure.
Pushback, right?
However, I'd rather somebody be too hands off than too hands on.
Oh yeah.
Especially where they're not ultimately the ones that the checks are coming
when they're
from.
Business people, not football people. I don't want anywhere near football. I mean, that's not tough. Speaking of which, our little brothers to the south, the Chicago Bears, holder of the #1 pick, big time, I guess, conversation point when we were in Indy. Heard a lot about the Bears, heard a lot about what they possess as far as draft capital, free agency dollars, etc. This Caleb Williams kind of foregone conclusion, right? And I know NFL media is working overtime trying to sow the seeds of doubt as far as, they could take someone else. And I just think it's a foregone conclusion at this point that Caleb Williams is going to go to the Bears. I'm not completely sold that Caleb Williams is going to walk in and be like, the savior that the Bears are obviously going to hope that he is. But I'll tell you what, that kid is fucking talented. And what I'm kind of upset about as a Packers fan is like, it does seem like early days. Now it is early days, but Ryan Poles, he's not making idiotic moves. Like they just made this 5th round trade for the guy that the center from Buffalo, like letting Lucas Patrick hit the market, things like trying to up that floor a little bit. Like there's some rumblings of competence coming from Chicago. I'm not a big fan of that, Billy.
Yeah, I'm not either. And the other part of it is there's certain incubators that you want to put a young quarterback into. The Packers, I don't necessarily know that sitting behind Aaron Rodgers is the best. It's definitely not the worst, right? You learn quite a bit. Put him into a couple of weird situations, but guess what? Awkwardness sometimes builds character. It clearly did some of that for young Jordan Love.
Ooh, baby, yeah.
But the Chicago Bears coming off a 7-win season where they peaked towards the end of the year. Now, did they peak
especially
in their last game?
defensively.
Defensively,
No
big
doubt.
time. I think it's clear Eberflus can coach,
Agreed.
and he can coach defense,
Yep.
and he cleaned up a lot of garbage that was going on in that building.
Yep.
Their defensive coordinator had the FBI investigating him after. Allegedly. Like, are we kidding? Are you
That's
kidding
what
me?
we've heard. Yes.
Are you kidding me? And then to be able to, at some point in time, have your defense be ranked number one in something, that's impressive to me. I also, the wild card in here is that they have 9, and that they can either. I agree with you that they're going to take Caleb. It seems pretty clear cut that that's where they're going to walk into. They can add more talent at 9 on the offensive side. They have a number 1 wide receiver. They have a competent running game. And they have Shane Waldron, who I think is going to be the best offensive coordinator they've had there in years.
In a long time. I agree.
I
That's
don't
what I
love it.
mean.
I
Shades of
don't love it.
competence. That's what I'm talking about. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing. It is still the Bears, and I still have every, expectation that they will screw this up. Like, it's just who they are. It's in their blood. Until the McCaskies sell, you can't convince me of anything else. I think they'll get involved and something will happen to make it all kind of crumble, right? I don't doubt for a moment that, they're listening to offers for Fields and they'll probably pull the trigger. But I'll tell you what, if the Bears were smart, which, it's the Bears, so that's a big stretch. But if they were smart, they just keep Fields. There's no reason to move him. If you've got the number 1 pick, you've got this quarterback, and I understand he wants to come in and start right away and be the franchise. Do what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. Have him sit that first year with the understanding that you're taking over next year, but this first year, we're going to have you sit. Keep Fields for another year, have him be your starter. But there's no way they're going to have that kind of patience. Though they should. There's no way they do that.
The other part of it is, and I've seen a couple of people mention the Sam Bradford trade when Teddy Bridgewater goes down, and you get a fat package for Sam Bradford, right? Like you already knew that they were moving on in Philadelphia. I see the point, and I don't disagree that it's the smart way to go. I don't see them having the stones to do it. I don't see a whole lot of organizations having it. And I'm also, though, the group that is, as much as I do fear Caleb Williams could be a sensational talent at the quarterback position. He's pretty legit. He's that good, and I think you can get him to play in concert with the offense.
Right.
When his defense doesn't give up 40 points a game.
Yeah,
that's a difficult. His 3 years playing, even at Oklahoma, it was the same at USC. His defenses were atrocious. Yeah. So, there was something to. I feel like I got to make superhuman plays. You walk in with a really good defense in Chicago, that could be right out of the gates a little bit different. But I'm in the camp that I would trade back twice. I would have 4 first-round picks potentially in this year's draft, 2 into next year. I'd sign Fields for 3 years at, call it,
$80 million. Really? You would
$70 million.
You'd go in on Fields as your long-term answer at quarterback?
I would. Yeah.
Wow.
And long term is, 3 years with an opt-out after 2.
Right.
In my
estimation. Most NFL contracts at this point, right?
100%.
Because I don't know, man. I just haven't seen any consistency from Fields to say I'd be comfortable committing to him like that. But I get it as far as trying to acquire assets around him to build up the team, right?
The way your team could build out would.
The problem is, if you're Poles, you got to start getting results at some point. You can't spend every offseason collecting draft capital and all this free agency cap space, and it's but you keep winning 7 games a year. That's
the deal. Even if your team looks really good on paper, and you have all these first-round picks that start to show signs at the end of the year, and you win 7 games and miss the playoffs. His ass is probably grass. So that's why I don't think anybody would do it. I just think from the fundamental of building the football team.
I hear you.
You're much closer to being a dominating roster than trying to hit the lottery and get yourself the top 5 quarterback that's going to carry you to championships.
Think about this. They could potentially obviously take Caleb Williams 1, but then that second first-round pick could be a stud wide receiver. You put that in Chicago, already got DJ Moore. You improve that O-line, which is the whole key, obviously. But you improve that O-line, they're cooking with gas there in Chicago. I don't love that. I'm not about that life.
Well, and that's the deal. That's again where you can trade back to 2. Let the Commanders go and make a massive haul to go get the hometown kid as their starter.
Yeah.
Trade back from 2 to 5, draft Joe Alt, and then you have your first round pick at right tackle, your first round pick at left tackle. You let Fields see what that, and then at 9 you can grab another, like you said, a stud wide
Stud
receiver,
wide out. Yep, there are plenty on
and
offer.
you're off and running right there. But I'll waive the consulting fee.
Something you won't do is duck this next question, which is how was the combine, man? I did want to get a little peek behind the curtain for the folks at home about what the combine is like through the eyes of someone who's never been before.
Yes.
We did, obviously we were on the radio a couple days. We had a lot of fun in that regard. But I think most people at this point know the combine is much more about what happens in the evening, the networking side of things, the hang, as it were. I remember Aaron Schatz from used to be Football Outsiders, now doing something else, but he always used to call it, I just go to the combine for the hang. And to me, that is kind of like, yes, you're creating content. You're certainly networking and hearing things, getting some, inside info at times. But yeah, it's mostly about the hang. And it feels like, Billy, you had a good hang your first time in Indy.
Oh my goodness, the best. Are you kidding me? Like that. I've tried to explain it a couple of different ways.
Right.
You see every human being that covers the National Football League all in one city.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself in a couple of conversations that with my ACT score, I had zero reason being in the conversation. However, in the midst of it, we're talking, and there's a lot of football being discussed, which I can have the conversation there. Then, once it goes into analytics and numbers, I check myself right on over here and I jump into another conversation. That part of it, I loved.
Yeah.
I also, and this is one thing that I know for a fact, going again, I'll have a better understanding of just how much access you have to really everybody that has a say in the National Football League.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
like that was eye-opening and really, really exciting. So that's where, just from like you got to crawl before you can walk, before you can run.
Right. Yeah.
I was crawling around, and not because, of too many trips over to Prime, which was a fantastic spot, by the way. Never seen a steakhouse turn into a nightclub like that.
It's pretty cool, right?
That's an awesome time.
Suck. Wait, more importantly, you got to. I need the full version because I got the shouting over the din. We're both very drunk version of how this happened. But how did it transpire here in the light of day? As I can now hear you, how did it transpire that you ended up in a beer pong tournament?
Oh yeah, that was a strange situation. Sorry, somebody decided that they're gonna. Come on, man. So we ended up at the Saint Shack, which there was nothing saintly about this establishment.
No, well, it was funny too because you texted me that you were there, and someone "Where's Billy?" And I said, "He's somewhere called the Saint Shack," and someone was like, well, "You mean the Steak Shack?" I was like, "No, Saint Shack. It says it here." I had no idea.
No idea what it was.
Never heard of it.
But I had met up with a former teammate of mine. He was there with a couple of people, and just sitting there having a drink. Bartender walks on up with a clipboard and says, starting a beer pong tournament, double elimination. And I didn't even look at the page, and I just wrote down gamers, and I slid it off to the guy next to me. All right, we're in. So that's one of those things that you just don't say no to.
Right.
However,
I feel you.
Should have said no if I would have known that it was a 3-hour time investment.
Man, you were there forever.
Dude.
Cow.
And the worst part is, I'm not good at beer pong, but I'm competitive enough to be too upset if I lose.
Exactly.
Right. So
you're in it to win it.
I'm saying shit, I want to get out of here. Right. Like I'm still trying to make cups.
Right.
And then I'm not making them. So then I'm getting even more mad. I'm like, dude, you don't want to win and you still can't make cups, and this thing's still not getting over.
You're not winning.
Yeah. So that was tough. But once we got there and once we got to our establishment, it was fantastic. It was perfect. Got introduced to a lot of different things in Indianapolis. Never seen a 3-pull tab, right? In Wisconsin, there are always 5 options. 3 and 1.
Yeah.
That was interesting to me. So I really appreciate Indianapolis for teaching me a lot of different things about culture. I would just now I have an idea as to what I'm doing. So I've got the roadmap.
You are going to attack it with some fervency. Also, shout out for not tearing up the truck, the F-150 in the Sheraton parking lot, which you almost took apart.
That's a good one, dude.
Close call. Close call.
It said 6'4" clearance, and I'm like, we got to be close. And as dumb as I can be,
Right.
I had thought, it just kind of dragged over that yellow thing. Well, that shouldn't be an issue, right?
No.
Not like there's busted up concrete that you're going to drive right on into.
No.
That's why they have the clearance thing
What
down
could
there.
possibly go wrong?
Pulled that right on back. We're taking the roof off down there.
Nope. No, that's what I mean. Like you called an audible and you won the game. So I was,
sometimes
I
it
was
works
proud
to
of you.
check out a plays at the line of
You
scrimmage.
got to do it, man. You got to do it. I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me. We're going to hopefully doing this weekly. We'll do it like
if you'll have me,
hopefully regularly throughout the off season into the season on the radio. Billy Schmid from 97.3 The Game. I cannot thank you enough for the time, man.
Let's do it again next week, brother. Thanks.
Awesome.